My name is Mike Shoeman, and I'm going to be reading a piece called The Story That Didn't by Ellen Den Hollander. My intention in sharing this with you today is to share a story that people aren't paying attention to. It's a story of a friend of mine, who's been through rape, murder, torture. And I kind of think of this video right now as an audition of sorts, because I'm bringing my heart to reading this, and it's an audition not to create an art piece that can be commercially exploited, but to invite you into a conversation. So it's a conversation about it's a conversation about some really dark things that are happening in our world. It's a conversation about how organized child abuse really is. So what I'm asking is to begin a conversation. And my intention is to commit this story to memory so that I get better at presenting it. And I do want to have those deeper conversations. So yeah, I am looking for feedback. The feedback is not. I don't want to hear what you think about what's good or bad, right or wrong about this. I want to hear what resonates with you, and where did you feel a disconnect. And I'm hoping we can bring artists together, people who have spiritual gifts together, to start having the conversations that we've been afraid of having.
Once upon a time, there was a story that did not want to be told. Nobody wants to listen to me, the story said, if someone asked. I'm too true to be good, and people don't like that. The people want fairy tales that mesmerize and stories that end well, the story lisped softly. I'm not like that. I'm not enchantingly beautiful, and I don't end well. As a matter of fact, I don't end at all. My story is still ongoing and has been happening for a long, long time. I'm too real. I don't have periods, just commas. People don't like that. The story didn't even have a book to live in, like normal stories do. Instead, it was scattered and spread all across the worldwide spiderweb in the lands where no one was paying attention.
Everyone is disgusted by me, the story said. Even those who try to write me down are disgusted by me. At first I tried, to be told. I cried out loud and as hard as I could until somebody found me. But then, when they started writing, things always went down very fast. Some lost themselves in sadness and ended up insane. Others disappeared. And a number of them were killed by the people I tell about. And the few who made it through soon found out that they were the only ones who wanted to listen to me. I'm no fun at parties. I don't do well around the Christmas tree, let alone before bedtime. I even awaken a nightmare, the story said. I keep everybody up at night. It's because I don't end well. And who wants to know what's out there, what's true? There in those places we don't name, where children die and decent people are the opposite of what they seem to be. Who wants to be a dead hero in a story that no one's waiting for?
The story was in bad shape. Because it was never really told, it never really ended.
So it continued to go on and on and on. Every day added another page. Slowly, it started to form its own web within the worldwide spider web.
Then one day a girl woke up, somewhere in the lands that started to pay attention. In hindsight, it's hard to tell who found who. History will keep it at, they found each other. The girl found the story, and the story found itself in her. It was a wondrous duo. And just like the rest, she did her very best. First she became raged with madness, then she lost half her mind in the sadness.
The people who were in the story, it didn't take them long to find her. And she was scared, very scared, but she did it anyway. So she wrote and she wrote and read and told whoever she met about the story, especially to those who didn't want to hear it. She told it at parties, around the Christmas trees, and right before bedtime. By this time, she kept her own nightmares awake for months. But there were not enough ears ready to hear, and there were not enough eyes able to see.
The girl became desperate, and that's never really a good idea when you're in a fairy tale. She broke her heart, and then her head. And after trying everything she could, she finally gave up. She took the story and put it on a plank where hardly anyone ever looked, in a house that nobody visited anymore. She whispered to the story, "I can't tell you like this. This is too much, and not the way. I need to be stronger, and no longer angry, and no longer sad or confused. I'll be back, I promise. When I'm done, I will come back." And she closed the door in her head and opened the door to her heart again. The story was quite understanding and only blamed her a little bit.
Seasons passed, and the girl did things that no one dreamed of, but that everyone thought were exceptionally special. Every once in a while, she forgot about the story, and in those moments, she was happy. But the story never let go of her entirely. Someday, it has to be possible, she said to herself, to be in the same room with the story and stay happy, to tell it, to tell the story without it breaking me. Someday, this will be a love story, she decided. I don't care what they say. I don't care that they say it's never been done. So I think I can do it. And she tried her best, a little harder. Months passed. At times, the story would knock on her windows, and she would read a bit, write some, but it was still too painful to talk about. So once again, she closed that door.
The story was starting to lose faith. Every time she came, it had hope. Every time she left, it lost a little of itself. The more she said no, the less the story believed in her. One day she was done, she decided. She could think about the story without it ripping her apart. She was no longer angry nor scared, let alone confused. Her heart now had a warming glow, and the fire and lights inside were turned on. "Now I can tell you," she said to the story, "all the way without leaving parts out, without being scared of the people you tell about. Go ahead. I'm ready." But the story remained silent. "I don't want to be told any more," it mumbled. "What's the point? Sure, heads will come off, mouths will fall wide open, children will be saved and children will die. And then what? Don't get me wrong, it won't be boring, but what's the point? They don't want to hear it. It will just make everybody more miserable. Is that what you want? No, I'm out. Just leave me alone. They don't want to listen, and I no longer want to be told. Go find another story to tell." The girl thought about these words for a moment. "But you're my story," she said. "So what?" The story was getting agitated. "You don't always have to tell your own story. It's really not necessary. Tell them about dragons and castles. Tell of the times to come and times to go. That's what people really want to hear these days. Tell something about letting go, something fashionable. Put an ice castle around it and they'll love it. But leave me alone if you know what's good for you."
The girl took a moment to think. And then something miraculous happened. So miraculous that all stories worldwide for a moment fell silent because of it. All over the fairy tale forests, and far, far beyond the deep, earth-shattering silence could be heard. Even the horses were quiet, which really had never happened before. Then the story said, "Okay, if you think that will work, I'm willing to try." "I really do," the girl said. "But you got to believe in it again. Otherwise, it won't work. It's how it goes with everything." The story nodded awkwardly. Then softly, so softly that only the wind could hear it, there was a whisper. "Okay." The girl nodded, visibly pleased with the answer, and from the depths of her purse, she fished out a pouch. A little bag tied with a little ribbon. It took some effort to open the little bag, but then she turned it around and took out her most precious possession. Here, she said. This is my innocence. You can borrow it until yours is back. The story looked at the innocence. The innocence looked inside the story. It's a bit like an abyss, the story said. The girl nodded, confirming. I know. That's why I didn't see it at first. Does it hurt? The story asked. Only in the beginning, the girl answered. Together they watched the innocence for a moment. Then the story opened its mouth and swallowed the innocence whole. And finally started talking. And you couldn't hear it. It wasn't in the newspapers and nowhere on TV. But everybody in the lands, for a moment, paid attention. Because deep down inside, a rumble had started. The lands were waking up. The clocks pointed at 11:11. And that was the beginning.